George Mueller lived in England in the 1800s, and he ran a number of orphanages completely by faith. Now, early one morning, a little girl was playing in Mueller's garden when he took her by the hand and led her into the dining room. "Come and see what the Father will do," he told her. Now, the plates and the cups and the bowls were on the table, but they were empty. "The children are dressed and ready, but there's no food for them to eat," the orphanage's house mother informed George. So there was no food in the larder, and there was no money to meet the need. The children were standing and waiting for breakfast. "Children," said George, "you know we must be in time for school." And then lifting his hand, he began to pray. "Dear Father, we thank thee for what thou art going to give us to eat." And then he waited. Almost immediately, a baker knocked on the door. "Mr. Mueller," he said, "last night I could not sleep. Somehow I knew that you would need bread this morning. I got up and baked 3 batches for you. I will bring it in." Mueller said, "Children, we will not only have bread, we will have fresh bread." And soon there was another knock at the door. It was the milkman. His cart had broken down in front of the orphanage, and the milk would spoil by the time the wheel was fixed. So he asked Mueller if he could use some free milk. George just smiled as the milkman brought in 10 large cans of milk. Just enough for 300 thirsty children. What a great example, and just one of many from Mueller's miraculous ministry, of how God will sometimes wait to act until you act. He will wait to move until you move. Because George believed that God would supply their needs, he had the children ready at the table, the empty table, and he gave thanks for a meal that had not yet arrived. You are watching an In Favor video series called Treasuring Your Words from Heaven. These are things to do and not to do with your prophetic words. And we're leading you through 14 responses, how you can respond to your personal prophecies. So you've received a prophecy, you've recorded it, you're reviewing it regularly. Just very quickly, you've tested it and interpreted it. You have embraced the word with all your heart. You haven't rushed into anything that you'd regret later. You haven't acted too quickly. You've given yourself time for prayer and reflection and sought confirmation. And you have faith that God can fulfill this word and that he will in his own time and way. So you're trusting him fully, refusing to doubt. And because you believe your word, you're declaring it out loud, proclaiming it with assurance and expectation. You know the drill by now. This chapter leads you from believing and declaring to acting and arranging your life so that you can see the word come to pass. Aligning with your word is what I'm calling it. And that can involve several actions. Here's 3 of them. First, it might mean just simply responding to the word in obedience. The Lord instructs you to do something, and you embrace that instruction wholeheartedly. As an example, you have a prophetic dream in which Jesus asks you to meet with him in the mornings. And so from then on, you set aside the first hour of each day to do just that, just simple obedience. But it can also involve removing hindrances in your life that prevent the word from coming true. Is there anything in your life that might be hindering the fulfillment of your prophetic words? Any attitudes toward others, any distracting habits, any doubts, any hard feelings about the past? Pray into that and ask God to show you if you are a part of the reasons your promises are delayed. And then thirdly, it can involve taking specific actions to bring the word closer to fulfillment. I call this clearing the way by giving God room to work in your life. How can you partner with the word to help it come to pass? How can you make yourself more available and receptive? For instance, you receive a prophecy that you're speaking to children on the mission field in South America. So you begin brushing up on your high school Spanish. Your prophetic word says that you will move quickly. So you begin getting your house in order. You clean out some old junk, you organize your financial records, and so on. The prophecy given to you at church pictures you giving a ride to someone who needs prayer. So on the way home that morning, you stop at the car wash and you clean out your automobile inside and out. Or a prophet predicts that you will be traveling to the nations. So the next day, you fill out the paperwork to renew your passport. Now, this isn't the same as rushing into something and running ahead of the word, making decisions too quickly and regretting it later. Because most of the examples I gave you would make your life better and more orderly, even if they didn't contribute to bringing a prophecy to pass in your life. So when you align, you are leaning into the prophetic word. You are taking small steps to put your life in order as a way of demonstrating to God that you want to partner with him in seeing this word come to pass. We already do this in our daily lives. If we get a message that the new mattress is being delivered this evening, well, then that morning we remove the old one and we clean out the hallway so that the movers can get through. Or if you're told, hey, you're hosting family for the holidays this year, then you prepare for that by changing sheets in the guest room and stocking up on snacks. A prophetic word is God's plan for your life, and it's an invitation for you to partner with him. It's what he intends to do in your life and with your life, and his intention is that you cooperate with him. So he acts, or I should say you act, and he acts. You respond to his word, and then he responds to your response. You do what you can do, and then God does what only he can do. And looking back, you'll always see that God did way more than you did, but his part depended on you doing your part to align with the word and to make room for it. God will not normally do what you should be doing. Are you wanting to align with the prophetic word, but you're not sure what to do next? Well, do what you know to do, and then God will give you light for the next step. Consider how Mary did this when she aligned with her prophetic word. When the angel announced to Mary that she would conceive as a virgin and give birth to the Messiah, he gave her a sign and an encouragement that her conception was not the only miracle in the family. Her cousin Elizabeth, who had never been able to have children, was now well along in her pregnancy. And if God could do that for her cousin, well, then he could do it for her. So notice how Mary responds to that information. At that time, Luke 1 says, Mary got ready and hurried to a town in the hill country of Judea, where she entered Zechariah's home and greeted her cousin Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby, John the Baptist, leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. In a loud voice she exclaimed, "Oh, blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you will bear. But why am I so favored that the mother of my Lord, would come to me? Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill her promises to her." And Mary stayed with Elizabeth for about 3 months and then returned home. So Mary followed up on this news from Gabriel by immediately traveling to visit with Elizabeth and staying with her for several months. Mary had to have been just bewildered by her unusual situation. And surely Elizabeth, whom she knew and trusted, would be able to tell her what the pregnancy was like and give her good advice regarding her own. Mary would have received consolation and encouragement and confidence by the time she returned home to face her own very interesting future. Mary aligned with the angel's word by seeking sympathetic counsel and assistance for carrying the Messiah. It's as if she were thinking, well, who knows something about miraculous birth? I'm going to go there and find more about this, and I'm going to do it without delay. And she received additional confirmation when Elizabeth greeted her by calling her the mother of my Lord. She was being instructed and encouraged by someone who was farther along in the process than she was. Here's a great story from Jack Deere. He says there were about 1,200 people at a conference in Houston, Texas in March 1993. Tim Johnson was attending that meeting where Rick Joyner, Paul Kane, and Jack Deere were speaking. At that time, Tim was an all-pro defensive lineman for the team that was known at that time as the Washington Redskins. At the close of the previous NFL season, Tim thought God was leading him away from the Redskins to another football team. But he wondered if it was really God speaking to him or he might just be reacting to some changes in his circumstances. But by that spring, he was almost certain God was opening a door for a move to another team that would be professionally and financially rewarding. However, Tim had begun to have such excruciating pain in his back that he could no longer jog, let alone run. It developed to the point that it threatened to end his professional football career. So Paul Cain was introduced to Tim, but was not told by him or anyone else about the injury or his planned move away from the Redskins. But one night after Paul finished speaking, he began to give prophetic words to people. And he asked, "Where is Tim from the Washington Rednecks?" Because he's not one of your more knowledgeable sports fans. Tim stood up. Paul said, "Tim, you're in a place right now where promotion comes from the Lord. The Lord showed me in a very clear way that you have been in transition and you are thinking about a move. The Lord showed me that you are not going to make that move right now because he still has something wonderful for you where you are. The Lord is touching the back of your neck and your lower back. You don't look like you have that trouble. You look like you're in the picture of health, but the Lord is going to heal that pain, and now let's thank the Lord for this." That Easter Sunday, Tim woke up and went to the park near his house, and he began to jog, and he had no pain. He began to run, still no pain. He was completely healed of his back and neck problems. And remember that Paul had said the Lord was going to do something wonderful for Tim in Washington, D.C.? Well, he stayed with the Redskins for the 1993 season and had his best year in professional football. At the end of the season, he received a number of incredible awards, and among them, he was named the most valuable Redskin player by the Quarterback Club of Washington, D.C., an outstanding honor for a lineman to receive. Had Tim left the Redskins as he had planned, he would have missed a number of very rewarding things that awaited him. So in this story, Tim aligned with his prophetic word simply by going for a jog, when he had every reason to expect excruciating pain, and by staying where he was, even though it seemed that that would be a more advantageous move for him. And in response, God blessed him in wonderful ways. So, making this response your own. Michelle McLean says, God, in his love and mercy, sends prophets and prophetic people with insight and direction, and we must then make a decision to follow and align our lives with the revealed prophetic word. She says, the moment you choose to align your life with the prophetic purpose of God, the Lord is watching, and he sends every resource you need to accomplish his prophetic purpose in your life. So recall your most recent prophetic word, or maybe all of them. Make a list of all the differences between your present situation right now and the ways in which your prophecies describe you then in the future. Well, if you believe these words from heaven are true, then there may need to be some movement on your part to close the gap. Without running ahead of it, what are some initial steps you could take in the direction of that prophecy? What is keeping you from acting on it right now? Next video, response number 12, encourages you to take your prophetic words and fight for them. See you then.